What's up, everybody? Brett here, back with my YouTube channel, Good Talk Gaming, doing some more unit testing today. Going to be joined by my friend Triiari, who, if you watch my channel at all, you've gotten to see a lot of his replay videos. And he's kind of the perfect partner to help me do this unit testing because he understands the units just as well as I do. And we have a pretty cool lineup here. We've got the Dark Elves Infantry versus the Greenskin Infantry. And we're going to go cheap to expensive and then end up by fighting off the leadership here. So, okay, let's go ahead and get underway. Let's charge our, we've got the Bleak Swords versus standard Orc Boys matchup. And here we go. We're going to charge in. Stat-wise, I mean, Silver Shields on the Bleak Swords is nice. Slightly higher melee attack, which is kind of crazy to me. They have 6 more melee attack, 5 more melee defense, but less weapon strength, which is not surprising. 6 less weapon strength. So let's see. Let's go ahead and fast forward just to the second fast forward tier. There we go. Cool. And see how that goes. Now, also worth noting that the Orc Boys have a slightly higher charge bonus too. So they're going to get that good initial damage, but their leadership is going to be poor. So honestly, I'm expecting the Bleak Swords to win this. They're pretty fairly evenly costed units. So guys, before we get too far into it, if you're not aware, if you haven't watched the other videos, you won't be able to hear Triiari, unfortunately, but he's going to talk to me. I'll ask him some questions, and then if he has some good insight into the matchup, I'll definitely be relaying that to you guys. So yeah, I think the Bleak Sword's going to win this. They have, I would consider, slightly superior stats, but I think the big factor here is definitely leadership. So I'm going to go ahead and pull back and pull the Bleak Swords way out of the way. Okay, so that went about as I expected. Bleak Swords win, but mostly only because the Greenskin leadership just can't hang in there and keep fighting. But it was pretty dang close otherwise. Alright, next up, we've got the Black Ark Corsairs. So, a pretty unique unit in terms of the Dark Elf roster because they're kind of still a low tier unit, but they have great stats. 80 armor for the Dark Elves is honestly kind of high when you're looking at the comparison units like the Bleak Swords and the Dread Spears. They have really good stats. They have some decent anti-infantry bonus. Let's go ahead and see exactly what that is. So a bonus versus infantry of 8, 7 armor piercing damage, and just all around good melee attack and melee defense. They have no mitigation, however, versus ranged attack. So that's something to consider. And they're going to be fighting against the Savage Orcs. And let's go ahead and pull those guys in. So they're a unique option from the Greenskins. They are unarmored, but they do have physical resistance. And let's see. I just played a Wurzag campaign, and you can get their physical resistance up ridiculously high. But 25% physical resistance on top of their frenzy. So as long as they're doing okay in combat, they'll be getting that frenzy bonus. And they're pretty much evenly costed, but I expect the Black Ark Corsairs here to win. They're a slightly more expensive unit. The Savage Orcs, let's go ahead and charge them in, Triiari. The Savage Orcs have a great charge bonus of 28, which is 12 more than the Black Ark Corsairs. However, they are a cheaper unit. They're only 550. The Black Ark Corsairs, I think, are 650. And I think in the end, their armor is going to win out. Even though, let's see, they also have 38 weapon strength, which is pretty huge. And at the moment, with their frenzy buffs, they are tearing into these Black Ark Corsairs. On the charge, I expect them to be pretty even. But as the battle goes, I honestly expect the Black Ark Corsairs to win this. What do you think? Win or lose? Who wins, Triiari? Yeah, Black Ark Corsairs. Yeah, I think so too. And we'll see here the leadership is just now starting to dip. They have a lot of models left. You know, they're sitting at 47 models here right now. And they're just not going to be able to sustain in the same way that the Black Ark Corsairs can. So I think that's pretty definitive. They do a ton of damage. Wow, the Black Ark Corsairs are starting to lose their models. But it was pretty even until they lost that frenzy bonus. And then at that point, the Black Ark Corsairs are able just to take that home. And guys, something to note too, I am playing the Dark Elves. Murderous Prowess is a thing. Once we kill off enough units, that's going to pop. And then I don't think we're going to take that into consideration when we fight unit to unit. But whenever you're playing, you definitely want to take it into consideration. Just in the same way as you would with the High Elves and their martial prowess. Or, you know, even the Greenskins and their WA, right? You have to always consider the WA and the bonuses that it gives you whenever you're facing them. But in this straight up unit test, I don't think it's totally necessary to do that, so I don't think we will. So now another interesting thing that I wanted to test out was the shades. So I'm going to bring forward the standard shades with dual weapons. They don't get a lot of love, I feel like, because they're a very expensive unit. But used tactically, they have stalk, they have vanguard deployment, and they have extremely powerful armor-piercing missiles. And with enough numbers, they can pretty much snipe anything in the game. I remember my first game against them, playing as the Lizardmen on the ladder in a free-for-all. I took Mazdamundi, I took his banner that gives him missile resistance, and I thought to myself, okay, I've got self-healing, I'll be able to, you know, survive the initial bursts of 3 shades shooting at me and it'll all be fine. That was not the case. So they killed me in like 3 seconds. So I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take 1 shot at you, Triiari. I just want you to run at me right now with the nasty skulkers. We're going to get 1 shot off, and then we're going to charge in, because I think it's pretty realistic that in a real battle, the shades would be able to get at least 1 volley off, and then they would have to charge into melee and fight. So here they go. Their melee stats not bad. Smoke bomb going off from the nasty skulkers, that's going to prevent any type of routing, or running away rather, because once your speed is reduced by that much, it's pretty effective. And also he lowered our charge speed, so that kind of wrecks you when you're trying to get a nice clean charge. You can't do it against the nasty skulkers. They have great armor piercing values. They're usually able to punch above their weight class in terms of their cost, and the shades are just going down. Nasty skulkers, I think, are perhaps one of the best greenskin units, period. Their invisibility allows them to protect your artillery very well, kind of unseen. You can get great flanks off. Pretty surprised here. I think if we hadn't have done the initial letting them get that first shot off, I feel like the nasty skulkers would have taken that. But surprised, honestly, to see the shades come out ahead versus nasty skulkers. Once again, I think it's just a pure leadership thing. There are still 64 models left. So, okay, that's good to go. I'm going to bring in... Let's see, what do we have left on the greenskin side? Do we have another... Oh, we have Savage Orc Biggins. That's going to be the next guys. Oh, that's... I was wondering where the other units were. I think they're invisible. Can you bring forward the Regiment of Renown? Not the Unbreakable one. The one that's not unbreakable. And we're going to fight them versus the Shades with Great Swords. It's so funny, like I can't see them, and I was like, where are those guys? Of course, they have stalk. They're Night Goblins, guys. They're Night Goblins. They have silver shields. There are 2 of them. They're 2 really cost-effective and powerful units for the Greenskin roster. These are the Warlords boys, and they have armor sundering. So the Shades don't have a lot of armor, but they're not going to have any once the Warlords boys engage in melee. So I'm just going to back my units up a little bit just to make sure they're not feeling that kind of reinforcement bonus from having allies nearby. And these are the Shades with great swords. As we can look at them, they have them. They like whip them out when they go into melee. But these dudes, same thing. Anti-infantry bonus, vanguard deployment, stalk. Just better armor piercing values, better weapon strength, and bonus versus infantry of 12. They're also more expensive, and they're way more expensive than the Warlords boys. So I would expect them to win. This time, I think I'm not going to even take the shot. Let's go ahead and charge.
Attack!
The Warlords boys, I mean, if you wanted to throw out a guy, you're welcome to, because that's definitely something that they have in their kit. They can throw a goblin out. Really good against the dwarves. Tightly packed infantry. Cool charge there. This is not a fight you're going to see, like, ever. You're never going to get to see the Warlords boys pull out their little shanks and go to town against Greatsword Shades. It's just not something that happens in the meta. But what a cool fight. Let me back up a little bit so you can see. The Warlords boys actually getting their leadership tanked. I am shocked at how the Shades right now are performing. I feel like, I thought this was going to be a more fair fight, but I just feel like it wasn't. I was underestimating the melee prowess of the Shades. 40 melee attack. Yeah, maybe I was. 36 weapon strength, 32 melee defense. Wow, they're a lot stronger of a frontline unit than I thought they would be. That's very interesting. What did you think? Did you think they were going to win that handily?
Onward! Murder awaits!
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they are severely overcosted compared to the Regiment of Renown, but I just thought they had a chance. I didn't realize that the Shades could do that much damage in melee versus a lightly armored target. That's crazy. So now I'm gonna bring up the Hellebronii, and I think we're gonna fight the Hellebronii versus the Eight Peak Loonies, who are the unbreakable Regiment of Renown for the Night Goblins. Are they the Fanatics? Or is it the other ones that are the Fanatics? Okay, so these guys can actually throw out their guys. You want to throw them and see if you can hit my Hellebronii? So the Hellebronii have charge defense against all, so I'm not going to charge. Oh no, you ran right into him. That's the most goblin thing I've ever seen. So the Hellebronii have charge defense against all, so I'm not going to charge with them. But the Fanatics going forward, I mean, look at my formation. Look how weird that is. They totally broke it up. They did some damage. They have poison damage, which is going to allow them to debuff the Night Goblins, but the Night Goblins have poison damage as well. So they're both debuffed. Slightly higher armor on the Hellebronii at 30, but they both have silver shields. So it really just comes down to pure stats, and I think they're pretty well evenly costed. The Hellebronii, I think, are 700 gold. The 8 Peak Loonies, there's always been a bug in this game for as long as I can remember, where these Night Goblins, these Regiments of Renown, don't have their real name. For whatever reason, it just says Night Goblins. But I'm pretty sure these are the 8 Peak Loonies. And yeah, for sure. So they're very similar in what they can do, but the 8 Peak Loonies are more made to fight infantry, whereas, of course, the Hellebronii are made to fight large targets. But I think it's going to be a pretty even fight, because at the end of the day, the most important thing about this unit is that they are unbreakable. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it just a bit, and I'm pretty curious who's going to win out here. Once again, Hellebronii slightly more expensive, but not really meant for an infantry engagement. But then again, the High Elf Infantry generally has better leadership. That's kind of what's been winning them these early tier engagements. But the 8 Peak Loonies don't break. Yeah, Triiari gets another cast of the Fanatics. He throws those guys out. They're pretty wild. The most fun that I have using them is in a siege environment, whether or not I'm attacking or defending. Getting these guys in the front of a gate battle, and then having units like blob up on the other side of the gate, and then you throw them out, and they'll get like 100 kills on the first cast. It's super fun watching them tear through dwarves and stuff like that. Very good armor piercing. But for the first time, the Hellebronai's leadership is wavering just a bit. They're bouncing in the 30s. Oh, let me pull them back. Martial prowess has activated. I didn't really want that to be part of this battle, but like I said, I want you to consider that it is always something that you have to contend with whenever you're fighting against the Dark Elves. So we're just going to wait a second for it to dissipate, and it actually lasts a long time. It's 90 seconds. Jesus, let's go ahead and, super fast forward here. Get that out of the way. Because it's such a powerful augmentation to stats. It's a huge leadership bonus, huge melee attack, charge bonus, armor piercing, missile damage, and vigor. So, I mean, all those things together are enough to make even something as cheap as the Hellebronii into a really powerful, murder machine. So once that disappears, it'll disappear in just a second. All right, charge back in. Once again, I'm not going to charge. I have the charge defense against all. So we can charge back in and let these goblins go to town. Oh no, he had one more charge left. And those guys are going to get eaten up. We can go a bit fast forward here. See, this is more interesting to me. These are a unit, so there are a lot of different ways to play the multiplayer, right? One of my favorite types of games that you can do are very small funs. And in a small fun battle, I always find that I like to play Greenskins, and I like to take all of their cheap regiments of renown and their goblin units, like their wolf chariot, the teeth snatchers, I think is what they're called. You've got these 2 goblin infantry units, and you've got like the rusty heirs, so you've got all these great cheap units, and you can use them in those types of battles. And if you need to, let's say, go a little bit wider with the Greenskin army, you want to have like a Black Orc centric build. These dudes are awesome at holding your center line, basically forever, thanks to the fact that they are in fact unbreakable, and they'll apply poison to the combatants that the Black Orcs are fighting against, and that'll give them a bit of an edge in terms of what they're going to be up against. Okay, So the Hellebronii able to take that fight. Pretty awesome. I'm a little surprised, but you know, at the end of the day, those were just some goblins, and we can't expect much out of goblins. Okay, so here's a cool one. We've got the Witch Elves in their bikinis and their shanks, and they are going to be charging straight at what in the lore, man, I hope in the lore that Orc Biggins would be able to take out Witch Elves. I know Witch Elves are, you know, ancient badass warrior women, cultists, but these, I mean, look at these guys. This guy's got heavy shoulder pads. I mean, they just look like football players, gigantic football players with their choppers out. And the Orc Biggins, just big stats all across the board. Once again, low leadership and not very good armor, considering. I kind of wish they maybe bumped them up to 60 or so. But the thing about Orc Biggins, they're decent versus large targets. They do have a bonus versus large, and they're going to get rampaged right now. And that's going to apply the Madness of Cain, lowering their melee defense by 10%, lowering their speed, so they wouldn't be able to escape even if they wanted to. The Witch Elves have a physical resistance of 20, which they need because their armor is only 5. Good leadership. Madness of Cain, of course, is attached to their melee attack there. And they have a bonus versus infantry of 8, so pretty solid. But all around, their melee defense is low, and it's really up to their melee attack. A lot of times, a Witch Elf unit is a more strategic unit. You want to use them to catch out cavalry units that get into your back line. You want to use them if, let's say, your opponent has a flying lord, and they're kind of trying to harass your artillery, or your back line, whatever the case may be. Whenever they come in to try and go for that vulnerable target, you swarm with the Witch Elves, you get that unit to rampage, and then you bring in whatever other elements of your army that you need to take out that target. The most dangerous thing about the Witch Elves is the fact that they cause that Madness of Cain debuff. But once their leadership drops, I mean, they lose that frenzy. They just got it back. So weapon damage, charge bonus, melee attack. Crazy battle. It's a lot closer than I thought. So the Witch Elves are 800 gold, and the Orc Biggins are 800 as well. So cost-wise, a very even battle. And I'm actually a little bit shocked. I thought the Orc Biggins would run before they were able to do this much damage. I thought they would just get scared. Now, I think we're going to see a little bit of that in the next battle, simply because I brought the Sisters of Singing Doom, which cause terror, which is a super effective ability to have against the Greenskins, or Beastmen, or Skaven, or any low leadership faction that exists. So the Witch Elves barely take that. I wouldn't be so surprised if you did this battle, 100 times, and came up with several different results. But at the end of the day, I think we need to respect the Witch Elves are a pretty strong unit, even against a unit like the Biggins. So alright, changing it up just a bit more, we've got the Savage Orc Biggins. Cool. And they are going to be fighting against the Sisters of Singing Doom. What else do we have? We have one more Savage Orc Biggins. That's perfect. Okay. So let's bring in the Sisters. These are a regiment of renown. They're strictly better stats than the Witch Elves. Yeah, let's just charge each other. That's going to be cool. Yes, they cause fear. They cause terror. Their physical resistance is exactly the same, but because they are a rank 9 unit, their stats are just all across the board better. They also still have, of course, Frenzy, but something to keep in mind, they have Murderous Mastery, which the Witch Elves have as well, but they get even bigger bonuses from their, Murderous Mastery when it triggers, as opposed to just the standard Murderous Prowess. So, I think it's just bigger melee attack. Let's see, it's kind of moving around on me. They cause fear, but they already cause terror, so that's a bit redundant. But here we go. So the Savage Orc Biggins, once again, more made to fight large targets. They have that physical resistance of 25%. They're also immune to psychology, so as long as they have Frenzy active, they don't give a crap about the Sisters of the Singing Doom's terror. So that's interesting. We need to drop them, and I think they're actually going to... Wow, they're wrecking them. Exactly. Yeah, and that's the point I made earlier, which is that the sisters are kind of a backline secondary unit that you're going to use as a tool to catch out very important units. And that's the point that Triiari is making right now. You'll probably never see this matchup, but I'm honestly surprised that the Savage Orcs did so well, and I think it's basically 100% down to their frenzy. I think if they had been fighting standard Orc Biggins, I have to say I feel like the Sisters of Singing Doom would have taken that fight, because they're just a stronger version of the other Witch Elves, and the standard Biggins don't have that protection from the terror that the Sisters of Singing Doom provide. I'm honestly shocked that the Savage Orcs took that in such convincing fashion. That was pretty awesome. So now, guys, we're going to showcase the Sisters of Slaughter, another bikini-clad unit from the Dark Elves. But these ladies are no joke. You'll often see on ladder. Let's go ahead and charge them at each other. You'll see that sometimes people will bring very elite Dark Elf infantry armies, and the kind of the centerpiece of those armies, the DPS, the thing that really cuts through the front line, is going to be the Sisters of Slaughter. They have poison damage. They are kind of lightly shielded, which is a bonus. But at the end of the day, a melee defense of 59, which is way better than the Witch Elves. See, they kind of do their slide whip moves as they go in. They also still have that physical resistance of 20 and the Trial of Blades. So whenever they're losing in melee, they get more melee attack and more armor-piercing damage. So their armor-piercing is not going to matter much or at all versus the Savage Orc Biggins. We can hear the screams of the dying here. But the Savage Orc Biggins are just such beastly units. They're good all-around tools. They're going to win you frontline engagements. They're going to win you cav engagements. They're decent versus large with that bonus that they have. Oh god, we hear the Sisters of Slaughter getting slaughtered. Let me zoom out so I can see the health totals. Oh my god. I think we're learning something here, Triiari, that you don't mess with Savage Orc Biggins.
Retreat!
Sure. You want to pull back the Savage Orc Biggins? Before they tear through and kill all my Blackguard?
Kill everything! Nagarothi! Spreading despair!
Sure. Yeah.
Terror and death!
So Triiari's making the point that, and it's a broad point that kind of goes for all the Elven factions, which is that they're going to have lower HP pools, and a lot of times they really do rely on the synergy that they have with other units in their rosters. They may not be pound for pound a standalone better unit than some of the other types of units like these Savage Orc Biggins, but with the synergies from their other units, from their leadership, and from their racial passives, like martial prowess, murderous mastery, things like that, that's where they really get their strength and they really begin to shine. So in a normal battle in the fourth quarter, when a lot of units are dying, the Dark Elves are going to get that huge bonus of their murderous prowess is going to proc, and their leadership is going to go right back up, and they're going to get like a second win. Their vigor goes up, and you have to really take that into account whenever you're considering these fights. So the Blackguard of Nagaron have charge defense against large. We're going to be fighting them against the Black Orcs. Let's look at their HP totals. The Black Orcs have huge HP pools, 8,100, but less models, fewer models. Armor-wise, Black Orcs win that with 110 armor versus 100. Leadership, though, on the Blackguard is nearly unbreakable, over 100 currently. Huge armor-piercing values on both of these guys. However, no bonus versus infantry on the Black Orcs is interesting. Whereas, of course, the Blackguard of Nagaron guys, we're well aware that they're made to fight large targets. They're made to take charges from cavalry. That's part of their utility. That's part of what they're good at. But they also have immune to psychology. So, that's not going to be an issue here against Black Orcs, but that is another part of their toolkit. And as we learned from our last unit testing videos, a lot of times halberd units, halberd infantry, with their good armor piercing, can stand toe-to-toe with elite, infantry that's made to kill infantry. So this fight's going pretty evenly. We can fast forward just a bit here. We can watch some Black Orcs crump on these Black Guard. Yeah, Triiari's saying that the Elven Halberdiers are all just pretty. They're pretty good units all around. They're going to be able to fight infantry if you need them to. They'll be able to fight large targets. I mean, amazingly. I mean, that's what they're designed to do. So in a way, you know, they're kind of a Swiss Army knife type of unit. In a pinch, they can fight some Black Orcs if you need them to. And you'll see here, they're almost... I want to say the Black Guard are a bit more expensive than the Black Orcs. But the fact that they're standing this well with the Black Orc unit is pretty awesome. It kind of makes me ask the question, like, why would I even want to take the Hargoneth Executioners when I can have a unit as versatile as the Black Guard of Nagaron, who I know can beat Black Orcs in a one-on-one fight, but also in a pinch, they could take on cavalry if I need them to. So, wow, they're going to win this. I think we can pull them back. The Black Guard are going to win. Their leadership, once again, nearly unbreakable. They're still at 36 leadership despite losing so many models. But that was a pretty cool fight. Alright, let's get that Black Guard out of there. And now we're getting into the big boys for the Dark Elves. The Great Sword Infantry, the Hargoneth Executioners. Once again, 100 armor, really solid leadership. Melee attack, melee defense, respective 38-34. But it's the weapon strength where they come in and have the hardest hitting. It's actually surprisingly less than the Black Guard, sitting at 44, but they have, no doubt, a bonus versus infantry of 14. So that's going to skyrocket whenever they're engaged with the Black Orcs. And they're a pretty slow unit also. The elite infantry for the Dark Elves is pretty slow. And for those of you who've never seen a Hargoneth Executioner before, you got to look at these guys. They have metal skull masks, power shoulder pads straight out of the 80s, and like some elongated kopeshes, which I guess would probably be great at cutting people's heads off. And if you're an executioner, that's probably all you really care about. So we're going to charge them in. Not a great charge bonus. Yeah, exactly. So let's look at these stats. Stat-wise, the big downfall of the Black Orcs is that their melee defense is only 26. Their weapon strength is super high. They have a great charge bonus for an infantry unit. Huge HP pools. Really strong armor. They're more heavily armored than the Hargoneth Executioners. And I'm honestly pretty curious who's going to win this. I feel like it's the Hargoneth Executioners. Yeah, Triiari's making that bet too. Executioners as well. But for their cost, Black Orcs are probably one of the most cost-effective, heavily armored late-game infantry units in the game. I think they're only are they only 1,000? 1,150? Okay. I could have sworn they were 1,000, but they're 1,150. Yeah, so they're pretty closely costed in terms of just pure gold value. But it looks like the fight's going pretty much down the middle right now. I feel like, once again, slightly superior leadership from the Dark Elves is going to be what determines how this fight ends. 21 models left on the Black Orcs. The Hargoneth are starting to die. Oh, the Hargoneth are going to lose, I think. Oh, they were wavering, but now they're coming back. The suspense is killing me. Black Orc's getting... Oh, there goes a Black Orc head. And yeah, once again, just that little bit of extra leadership is going to cause them to win that. But that was so close. I almost feel like, once again, if we tested that many times, I think what we would in the end see is like almost like a 50-50 chance that either or could win that fight. And of course, in a real battle scenario, there's going to be so many circumstances that can help to dictate how that individual matchup goes. Alright, so this is kind of what we've all been waiting for, I feel like. It's the Blades of the Blood Queen versus the Crimson Killers. So guys, real quick, before we charge in, we're just going to stop here for a second.
Moving out.
We are doing an infantry unit test. The strongest infantry units in the game, I think we've went over that. I think the Nordlings Ironbreakers, in my opinion, based on my experience, I think they're going to come out ahead as the most powerful infantry unit in the game, standalone, in this type of fair testing environment. The Crimson Killers, I feel like, are going to be a close second. Triiari and I both kind of talked about it right before, and we think the Crimson Killers are going to mash on the Blades of the Blood Queen. But after that, I think third place is kind of the most up for grabs. I think the Blades of the Blood Queen are probably pretty close running for that. You've also got the Peak Gate. Okay. Yeah, so Triari's saying he thinks that the Blades of the Blood Queen will beat the Regiment of Renown, Keepers of the Flame for the High Elves, which I think is those three. So we've got the Regiment of Renown for the Hammers, the Regiment of Renown for the Executioners, and then the Regiment of Renown for the Phoenix Guard. I think if we had to pick three runners-up for third place, those are going to be the three that I really want to test the most. And honestly, I think it's going to be Crimson Killers and Norgoling's Ironbreakers standing out on top. But I think when we finally get a chance to test Crimson Killers charge into the Norgoling's Ironbreakers, I think the Norgoling's Ironbreakers are just going to beat the ever-living crap out of the Crimson Killers. But we're going to have to see. So let's go ahead and charge at each other now. The biggest thing to note, guys, the absolute biggest thing to note about the Crimson Killers, you'll see here they're dual-wielding these great axes. They have splash damage, and they don't just have a little bit of splash damage, they have a lot. So they're armed to the teeth, as their tooltip says. They have a huge anti-infantry bonus of 30, well, no, that's just a huge armor-piercing bonus, I'm sorry, of 36. It's the Blades of the Blood Queen that have that good bonus versus infantry of 14, and just increased stats. Now, they also have Frenzy, which is a big deal. But part of their toolkit is that they apply the Guardian aura, which, of course, in this type of one-on-one testing is not going to be relevant. So just keep that in mind, despite the fact that they will probably lose this fight to the superior Crimson Killers. They have more utility than the Crimson Killers. The Crimson Killers' job is to run in and kill as many guys as possible without getting nuked by a Fate of Buna or being focused down by artillery or something like that. They're such an artillery magnet. Whereas the Blades of the Blood Queen, you want to hold them in reserve, keep them close to your Lord, perhaps Crone Hellebrun, or Marathi, or whatever the case may be, whoever your Lord choice is, you want to hug the Blades of the Blood Queen, and yeah, no surprise there. The Crimson Killers, they don't just win that, they just crush them. Yeah, 31 models left. They still have over half their models. And the Blades of the Blood Queen, despite having excellent leadership, are going to run from that fight. And I don't think anyone's surprised with that. If you follow Total War Warhammer competitive scene at all, the Crimson Killers probably have the highest DPS output of any infantry unit in the game. But that comes with the cost of being very easy to focus and often finding themselves the target of a lot of artillery fire or ranged fire, because they don't have any protection from ranged other than their 110 armor, which is not always enough. So to end out today's video, we've got, I don't know if this is spicy, probably not that spicy, but the Goblin Big Boss on foot getting pushed around by the Crimson Killers. Really cool model. I don't think people give the Goblins models enough love. Look at that shield. It's pretty sweet looking. He's got like a badass little helmet. And the one unit I kind of wish we had tested were the standard Goblins. Ever since getting that tooltip added that makes them expendable, they've become such a better unit. And I'm going to go ahead and line up over here. Okay, they've become such a better unit because when they rout, as you expect them to for a 300 gold unit, they don't trigger any type of leadership penalties for the Greenskins, which is huge. So we're going to test out the standard Goblin Big Boss first versus the Death Hag, and I'm going to throw them. We're going to throw them both in right now. We're going to move our lords out of the way to make sure we're not influencing the fight. And yeah, here we go. So a Death Hag stripped down and a Goblin Big Boss stripped down. Just want to kind of see how they do versus each other. The Death Hag still has poison attack, so that's going to be probably a huge factor. But she doesn't have missile resistance like the Goblin Big Boss does. And they're both very cheap when they're stripped down, but yeah. I think it's pretty obvious who's going to win this one. Melee attack of 70 plus poison is going to make it so that the Death Hag really doesn't miss in these exchanges, whereas she has a decent melee defense of 35. Yeah, I mean, the Goblin Big Boss, for his cost, I love bringing these guys. They add that encouragement aura. Yeah, and it's over. She's going to do a nice
Kane's
little
chosen.
gymnastics roll
It shall be.
and send the Goblin Big Boss running. But they're a cheap way to
Dreadlord.
augment your leadership for a Greenskin
Bloodshed.
army. And when you take them on their various mounts, if you take them on a wolf, they're fast, right? They can get in the back lines and harass. If you take them on the spider, then they have that poison element. You can keep them as kind of an entourage to your lord. And then the same way that you use the witch elves to catch out units, you can also use
Pushing forward.
a Goblin Big Boss on a spider
Meet
to apply
doom.
that poison to slow down a lord or a very valuable unit, and then to kill it. So here we go. We have the Dreadlord Sword and Shield versus the Orc War Boss. And as beastly as the Orc War Boss looks, the Dreadlord with the Sword and Shield is not a pushover. 90 armor, silver shield versus 70 armor, bronze shield. Bigger HP pool on the Orc War Boss. Bigger weapon strength by 50, but just all around better stats in terms of melee attack. Really is where they shine. Plus 7 melee attack there for the Dreadlord. And a huge charge bonus. I didn't realize the Orc War Boss on foot has a charge bonus of 60. That's pretty massive. And this is going to be a close fight. It looks like the Dreadlord is going to win this. But this is honestly another one of those fights where, let's say the Dreadlord had missed the first attack and the Orc War Boss had hit the first attack.
On the march.
It could have gone either way. Whoa, wow. I was pulling him back that entire time. He killed him. The poor git. Okay, so actually I was like clicking off of him. I was trying to get him to get off of that guy, but he like, his last animation, he was kind of like locked in and he killed him.
Come, vicious
So
warrior.
that's going to be it, guys. That's all the units we had to test. Now I think we can do a fun thing. You want to fight them all real quick? It's like a mosh pit.
Visions of destruction. Pushing forward.
Just pull them all in.
Dreadlord.
I know my lord is caught out. So we're just going. This is just for fun, guys. We're just gonna smash orcs versus dark elves. But as we do this, just my closing thoughts. I'm surprised. First off, my biggest surprise, I guess, came from the shades. I didn't realize that their melee capability was so great. And along kind of that same line, ooh, shades, what are you doing, guys? Get in that melee. Nobody told you to shoot. Along the same lines, the Savage Orc Biggins overperformed, I feel like, ridiculously. I would love to test them fighting some large targets. I think the Sisters of Singing Doom's terror there ended up just kind of chain routing everybody. But there are definitely other tests that we could do that more focus in on the effectiveness of a particular unit. For instance, the Hellebroni are meant to fight large. The Blackguard of Nagaron are meant to fight large. We could certainly test them in an environment where they're fighting their preferred enemy. But we learned just how strong the Savage Orc Biggins are, which I was shocked by. We learned that the Blackguard of Nagaron, in a pinch, they can go toe versus toe. They can go toe to toe versus the Black Orcs and do just fine. And the Crimson Killers demolished the Blades of the Blood Queen, which I think we both expected. But at the end of the day, it was a pretty convincing win. And I'm excited to see them fight versus the dwarves. So, Triiari, before we go, do you have any closing thoughts or anything that you learned that I can convey to the people? he's like, not really. I think this is a pretty easy, kind of matchup to figure before we went into it, just based on our experience. We knew how a lot of these matchups would go, but I still feel like I learned something, and I think in our next matchups, it's going to be two factions that don't have the kind of infantry prowess that the orcs and the dark elves have. I'd probably love to test perhaps the beastmen and maybe the skaven, something like that. They don't really have the kind of elite heavy-hitting front line like the Crimson Killers or the Regiments of Renown that are meant to take those types of fights. Or even the Lizardmen, Temple Guard versus something like Korok's Man-Rippers. That could be the type of fight that we want to see. And we're kind of getting to some of the weaker infantry-focused races when we start getting into there. And we just want to understand those matchups better. But at the end of the day, we're going to go full circle, hopefully, and get back to the more elite units and then have kind of 1v1 showdowns and let you guys see what you really want to see, which is at the end of the day, who's the best infantry unit on the battlefield in Total War Warhammer 2. But guys, that's going to be it for me today. Once again, my name is Brett. My channel is Good Talk Gaming. Thanks a ton to Triiari for helping. Definitely check out some of the casts that I'll be doing on my channel for the next few days. A lot of them feature Triiari and other subscribers as well. And if you want to watch him play, he's a good player. So feel free to check him out and leave a, if you're watching and you want to leave a nice comment telling him thank you, I would appreciate that as well. And if you have any ideas for the next matchup, feel free to leave that in the comment section as well. So that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Take care.